Bonjour à tous, je suis Jacques Haine.
Good morning, my name is Jacques Haine. I am in charge of the hydrogen facility, and I'm in charge of the hydrogen development in the Grand Est region. I'm also regional delegate for the hydrogen issue in the eastern part of France. I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting us, and we will get started with the first roundtable dealing with companies and researchers, businesses and researchers, key players in regional development. Each speaker will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves and present their project, and then we will give the floor to the audience, and I may have myself a few questions. First, I'd like to give the floor to Barbara Koch.
Okay, my name is Barbara Koch. I'm the director of the... Okay. Thank you. My name is Barbara Koch. I'm the director of the Upper Rhine Cluster for Sustainability Research. And we are a group who were working on the feasibility study for the Fessenheim Innovation Region. This feasibility study was started due to the closing of the nuclear plant of Fessenheim, and it is a cooperation of the 5 OICA universities in the Upper Rhine region and a number of research institutes located in the Upper Rhine region. In addition, I'm director of the Center of Renewable Energy and professor at the University of Freiburg. Thank you. Okay. So what was the background of our feasibility study? There was a meeting of politicians, of organizations, and of industries, how to develop the region after the closing of Fessenheim. And this was described in the Projet des Territoires, and this was the basis of our feasibility study. First, we did a potential analysis of the region, what is available in the region. And based on this potential analysis, we developed the idea for a European demonstration model for a societal and technical transformation towards sustainability. The vision of the Projet des Territoires was to have innovation technologies, value adding in the region, and to reach CO2 neutrality. Based on the potentials we analyzed in the Upper Rhine region and the Projet des Territoires, we identified 3 innovation hubs: battery, green batteries, battery recycling, then smart grids, because we need the grids, and green hydrogen. And in addition, we framed these innovation hubs with a working group on the territorial frame. This working group was looking for regulations, laws, cross-transnational, the impact on environment, the impact on society, and the economic conditions to implement pilot projects within the 3 technological hubs. We also investigated into the technical potential of renewable energies in the Upper Rhine region. So first I want to present you about the technical potentials of renewable in the Upper Rhine region. What is the Upper Rhine region? It is part of the Grand Est on the French side. It is part of Baden-Württemberg on the German side, and it is also the area in the Switzerland around Basel. And what we found out, based on numbers from 2018 to 2020, that we have a total energy use in this Upper Rhine region of 212 terawatt hours per year. The investigation showed, relating to the renewable potentials of wind, solar PV rooftop, solar PV agro, solar PV ground modules, biomass and hydrogen, that we have more technical potential of renewables in the Upper Rhine region, about 350 terawatt hours per year, than the energy which is used right now, the total energy which is used right now in this region. However, you all know that technical potential is not the implementation potential, so of course there is a reduction of the technical potential to the implementation potential, but this can also only be done when you have concrete projects, the implementation potential. So we developed in the 3 technical innovation hubs, we developed pilot projects, because of course we had an overall vision, but you have to start with concrete projects like a mosaic that you have at the end the whole picture. So in battery, green battery and battery recycling, we thought that according to the automobile industry in the region, that it would be a good idea to focus on this battery recycling, because also we have the know-how in the region. And when you look to the upper left, then you see that the blue lines or the blue columns show what is the intended volume of battery recycling infrastructure in 2030. And when you see the green lines, that is what is expected in 2025 and in 2030. So we practically have no recycling capacity for lithium-ion batteries. So these 3 pilots are Second Life, EV batteries, qualification utilities, facility for battery recycling, not only dismantling, but really recycling, and battery materials factory. For the green hydrogen, I make it short, I see that I'm too long. We had an investigation, and it showed if we put all the natural gas to hydrogen, that we would need for the Swiss part and the French part 280,000 tons per year in the area. And already we use now in Germany 5,064 tons per year hydrogen for processes, and 4,200, about 4,200 tons for processing energy, heat. And I will show what is written in this picture. And so we developed 4 pilots. The electrolyzer above 20 megawatt, of course, storage and virtual pipelines in the region, and defilling and refilling stations, pilots for defilling and refilling stations, and finally an H2 prosumer farm biomass, which is based on biomass. That means biomass is used to produce hydrogen. And finally, I'm nearly done. Finally, the smart grid. I will not explain smart grid because it's not topic here. So my last is that we should
keep time for question.
Yeah. So my last is that we have to always look systemic on the system, not only hydrogen are not only batteries, because it's an interrelated system, as you see here presented on the left. So we can start with pilots, with little mosaics, but always have the vision of the whole system in mind. So I will stop here. Okay. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Koch. Nous allons passer.
Thank you very much. I now give the floor to Catherine Brun, and I will ask you to stick to the time. Good morning. I hope you can hear me well. My name is Catherine Brun. I'm the Secretary General of GRTgaz. So my name is Catherine Brun. I am the Secretary General of GRTgaz, and I will be talking about the logistics of hydrogen and the role of TSO in hydrogen supply. Just a few words about GRTgaz, which is the main carrier in France. There is another carrier called GRTgaz. So based on Mr. Geyer's idea to go from Spain to Germany, one needs to use the GRTgaz network. But without giving you too much information about the key figures, I'd like to come back to what is the role of a TSO. A TSO is an infrastructure that will make sure that the production is supplied to consumers by guaranteeing connections to the storage facilities, and this logistics will give birth to a market. This is what we did a long time ago with natural gas, and we hope it will be the same with natural gas. Now, how do we envisage these emerging markets? Well, we have on the one hand an intellectual vision, a top-down approach, and on the other hand a more practical vision that starts with the project. So I would say that the modeling vision is a European vision, and it requires joint work, regular systemic work, as Mrs. Koch said. We understood from the beginning that we needed to work together with all European TSO to identify the production areas, the consumption areas, and to see how we could connect the various needs in a context where the networks that have been developed to create a fossil fuel market would make the reuse of pipelines devoted to hydrogen possible. This is what we call the hydrogen backbone, and you can see it on the screen. There would be pipelines from low-cost hydrogen production areas going until the other European regions. So I repeat, this is a vision, this is a goal. Now, how will it come true? It will come true with the help of territories. The first projects always start within a territory based on local needs, local authority needs when it comes to decarbonation, and every time this is the dynamic that will serve our purpose. In France, we started working in the city of Fos-d'Enquerre, where there are huge refineries. We also started a pilot project near Lyon, and in the Luxembourg and eastern area of France, and the degree of maturity varies from one region to another. These are emerging projects that have been set up thanks to the willingness of political authorities, of consumers and companies. And the concept of territory is not peculiar to one country. Now, of course, these pilot projects were launched in France, but they could have been launched in other countries as well. Now, I will not have time to go into too much detail, but this is a very symbolic project. It is an emerging project that was started because of the needs of an industrial client in the Saar region, because of the need to decarbonate or decarbonize mobility in France and in the neighboring countries, but also from the need to roll out new types of energy. And as Mr. Geyer said, the idea would be to repurposing some gas pipelines that are not used today or underused, but should now be used to recreate this ecosystem. So these are the first projects, and in the following steps we will work technically on some practical priorities. How can we inspect gas pipelines to have hydrogen circulating into the pipelines? How can I make sure that it is waterproof? What are the resources that we need to guarantee waterproof? How can we calculate hydrogen? Well, these are very practical and technical issues that we will need to be looking at.
Another important issue has to do with modeling, because the question that public authorities ask immediately is, okay, how is your gas pipeline better than installing a new electric line? How can you guarantee that we're really investing into something and we won't regret it later? So we need to plan jointly between gas and electricity. You need to have a joint modeling as well between electricity and gas in order to be able to guarantee that whatever we are setting up is really the optimal solution collectively. With hydrogen, we really need that coupling between electricity and gas. We've been able to do without so far, but now we really must have it. Thank you very much, Ms. Brun. I will now leave the floor to Philippe Haffner.
I am Philippe Haffner. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Haffner Energy. So we'll speak now about a different way to make hydrogen. I suppose everybody here knows what is electrolysis, and I would like to know who knows what is thermolysis. Oh, that's better than expected. Okay, so there is another way to make hydrogen, which is thermolysis, and this is exactly what my company is doing. So Haffner Energy has a long history. We started 30 years ago, and we started to use biomass as a primary energy. So we did a lot of projects, 600 megawatt projects in Europe, in many countries in Europe. Italy, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany. So we are very much used to biomass, and we started to think of a new system back in 2010. We filed a lot of patents, so we have 80 international patents related to a new process of producing hydrogen with thermolysis of biomass. So you'll see there are some interesting advantages of using biomass in order to make hydrogen. The first advantage is to go faster. To go faster because we do not rely on any heavy infrastructure. We don't need electricity or just a small quantity of electricity, as the energy we use is the own energy of the biomass. We don't need also the origin of electricity, because biomass is a renewable energy. And also there is a very interesting factor, is that biomass is a very economic primary energy, which allows us to get a very competitive hydrogen from now on, and carbon negative. So we have had a very, very fast acceleration this year. We made our IPO in Euronext Paris. We got 74 million euro. The company valuation now is 360 million euro, which means that we are starting to be now a significant actor of the hydrogen sector. So the way it operates is in fact quite similar to SMRs. SMRs make today 98% of the total, fossil make 98% of the total hydrogen, and it's very similar. And the reason is very simple, is that all the fossil fuels are were at a certain time biomass. And what we are doing in fact is to reproduce what nature did in million years, but instead of using a fossil energy, we use a renewable energy. And so we have a first step where we heat up the biomass and we separate a stream, a solid stream, with a gas stream. And the solid stream, we did that mainly for technical reasons, in order to clean up the gas and to catch all the metals and minerals which would be a problem in the gas. And it's extremely efficient. But what we discovered is that what we are getting, which is called a biochar, is a very, very interesting agronomic product, which is also a carbon sink. And we are getting, thanks to that, very strong negative CO2 emissions. We get 12 kilo for each kilo of hydrogen negative emission. And this is not what we are saying, this is what independent organism is saying under the life cycle analysis method. So the gas then is treated. I'm not going to go into the technical features, but it's very similar to what we're making with SMR, which is the fossil hydrogen from the fossil fuels, which correspond to the big part of the hydrogen produced today. So these figures, we didn't do them. When we made our IPO, we had some people doing that for us. And this was done, it was done before the gas increased, the gas cost and the electricity increased. We had here electricity cost of 55 euro per megawatt hour, which is of course far, far below the current prices, which are now at approximately, I suppose in Germany, 200 euros, something like this. The gas is at 100 euro. Here we are at 30 euros, but still, as you can see, the situation with biomass is extremely interesting, because the price we had 1 year ago is still the price today. We are still, for a small project, at a cost in the range of 3 euro. I mean a cost, this is not of course the selling price, and it does not include the distribution cost, it's a cost at 30 bar. And if we go for a big system, which corresponds to 50 tons per day, which correspond to an electrolyzer of 90 megawatt, we can go at 1.5 euro per kilo cost. But what is interesting, if you look at the right part of the graph, is that we are carbon negative under the life cycle analysis. So, I go fast. We are carbon negative of 12 kilo for each kilo of hydrogen. If we look at the fossil fuels, we are positive of 11 kilo for each kilo of hydrogen. And if we look at electrolyzer, we are slightly positive because of the life cycle analysis method, because of course we need some CO2 to manufacture the electrolyzer, but also to manufacture the wind farms or the photovoltaic panels. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut que je fasse? Pardon, je me suis trompé. So here you have some pictures from the plant we already have in Strasbourg at RGGS. I think there is a representative from RGGS, okay, at the back. So it's located 1 kilometer from the German border, very close to Switzerland. close to the European Parliament, and it's already the industrial scale operating in Strasbourg. So thank you very much.
Merci, Monsieur Haffner.
Thank you, Mr. Haffner. I will now leave the floor to Adwin Martens.
Try in English. Yes, that's me. I will tell something about industry and research in Flanders and in Belgium. My name is Adwin Martens. As I already said, I'm managing director of Waterstofnet. And our organization is started. I started in 2009. It's a non-profit. We are working with 14 people now, 14 persons. We are cross-border from the beginning, and that's very good to work cross-border in hygiene. So we have an office in Belgium as well in the Netherlands, and we have 4 pillars that we are working on. We have an industrial cluster of 120 members, fast growing now. We are also involved in 20 projects. We are a partner of governments, and we do also some consultancy. Of course, we have also hands-on experience. We have a fueling station operating in Helmond in the Netherlands, and of course we have a fuel cell car, although today I came by train because that's even better than fuel cell car. So this cluster, and that's important, we start in Flanders with about 20 members in 2016, and now it's becoming a kind of Benelux cluster with over 120 members. So even last year we are growing from 60 to 120, so doubled in 1 year. And what's more important is that those companies, in the beginning it were the really believers of hygiene, but now you see that the value chain is becoming much wider, and you see in the right side that we are covering indeed the complete value chain, going from green energy to the end users, small green energy producers and big ones, but also small end users and big ones, and also some technology developers, also research institutes and regional organizations. Of course, we see a lot of charts with logos. I always say logos is nice, but you need to have results. And therefore, we don't have only logos in our region, we have also things that are made and demonstrated in Flanders, Belgium, because that's, I think, is the next step we have to make now. We are announcing that much big things on hygiene, and it will be bigger and bigger and bigger, and I will be the first, and I will be the biggest and the largest one, but we have to realize also things, and you can scale up if you start your first projects. So here you see some projects that are realized here in our region. A 1 megawatt fuel cell plant, I don't go to all in detail. A 1 megawatt fuel cell plant was already realized in 2011 on byproduct hydrogen. So also fueling stations by electrolyzers using alkaline as well as PEM electrolyzers. We have already 175 buses built in Flanders by Van Hol. We have about 20 garbage trucks built by e-trucks. We have the first 40-ton truck driving here. It's driving near Brussels. It's built by VDL, and it's now driven at the Colruyt site. We are also having 2 electrolyzer companies, Cummins as well as Jonker Grill. Also trucks, excavators, fueling stations. So you see that a lot of things are already happening. And the next step will be that we are working now in the ports, realizing the first projects in the ports, and also on the backbone, because we have a lot of industry here asking for a lot of hygiene, so we need also backbones. So, and we have some ports like the Port of Antwerp, Zeebrugge, and North Sea Port. So what's next thing is that we have also a lot of research in Flanders. And what we have seen a few years ago, I think, is that there's a lot of research, but it's quite spread over all kinds of activities. It's also not really working together. Every research group has its own entity. And therefore, we made a catalog of about 100 pages. It's available on the internet. What's the hygiene research in Flanders? And how is this spread on the value chain? Because by making this picture, it's easier to connect this research to the industry or to the government, to say, yes, on what topic could we help Europe making hydrogen going faster? So that is also a catalogue, and then I come to my conclusions. I think we have some challenges. We see that research, we have to strengthen this research by cooperation, even in Flanders, Belgium, but also in Europe. And especially, how can we link this to industrial roadmaps? Because then it's becoming really relevant for the European targets that we have to meet, and it's becoming faster and faster in sense of urgency. Second thing is how we make the step from announcing towards delivering, because especially because of this sense of urgency, sometimes we said we have 20, 30 years, and now we say we have maybe less than 10 years. So let's speed up by delivering, and that's more important than announcing, I think. So that is my short presentation. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Martens.
Thank you, Mr. Martens. I think that idea of a catalogue, of a snapshot, of a list is very interesting. Maybe we could work together on that. I can turn to Fabrice for that. I will now leave the floor to Tabea Ruckh.
Ich werde meinen Vortrag auf Deutsch halten. Ich hoffe, Sie verzeihen mir das. Genau, mein Name ist Tabea Ruckh. Ich bin Teil der Plattform H2BW und hauptsächlich dafür zuständig, Förderprogramme im Land zu koordinieren, zu konzipieren in Zusammenarbeit mit dem Umweltministerium des Landes.
So the platform is a platform from Baden-Württemberg for technologies. The platform is working, so we're an agency for automotive, for the automotive industry. As you can see, we have many initiatives and projects that have been set up already. So we have been working on the transformation of the automotive industry, green mobility, e-mobility, and we've been working with hydrogen as well. So today, I'm going to tell you about, more specifically, I'm going to tell you about our platform. The platform is a bit of an umbrella for all of the activities that are active in terms of hydrogen technology in Baden-Württemberg. We have, in fact, the whole value chain is covered. We cover e-mobility, we cover other sectors such as electricity production, power distribution in the industry, mobility, and also in terms of architecture and buildings. So we have a hydrogen roadmap that we have decided at land level. We've spoken about it in our first report. Roland Berg has had a look at what was possible in Baden-Württemberg, and we have created or come up with prognosis. So we have 16,000 potential jobs that can be created in the area of hydrogen, and we're here talking about 9 billion in turnover by 2030. So this is the very basis of our platform. This roadmap is the basis of our platform. Maybe a couple of words now regarding what the platform has been doing so far. So we have the coordination for incentive programs. We have projects that we create and support. So that's an important part of what we do. Knowledge transfer is key. There is a big potential in that specific area for hydrogen, but we have to communicate properly. We do have regular newsletters that are published. We have some stakeholders who really show who does what in the land. We publish regular studies and pieces of research, and a couple of weeks back we were able to report on the needs and possibilities for production in Baden-Württemberg. Another very important point has to do with the support we provide to the research world. we must help projects scientifically. We must provide some scientific support in the region, and in order to be able to, in order to be able to use this scientific research to feed into other projects. And of course, it is not all about incentives. We are also working on fuel cells and hydrogen. So it's very important to have the right management as well, to have the right management network. It's central. You can see here many different points that I have noted. It's important for all stakeholders to work hand in hand via the platform so that we may in turn improve and increase knowledge transfer. We'd like to make that possible through, by working together. And we don't just want to talk about it, we want to really set up concrete projects. There are clusters, those groups are made up of different stakeholders for hydrogen technologies. There are many industrial companies that are involved. We have, science, communities, municipalities, political stakeholders that play a role as well, and we're trying to make sure that everybody can sit around the same table to set up projects and start new ones. So it's important to work cross-border. We have 200 international partners. It's very important as well to mention them. Those are projects that are cross-border and that go beyond the land's borders. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merci, Madame Ruckh.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ruckh. We did have some minutes for the Q&A. So if anybody has a question, there are microphones that will circulate in a second. If you have a question, please just stand up and ask your question on the microphone. Please do not hesitate, don't be shy. Anybody with a question for our speakers? Again, you need to get up and go to the microphone physically. You need to stand up and go there. I hope that it'll work, that they are in fact turned on.
I'm coming from Tüger in Germany, which is a corporation of 100 utility companies. I have a question to Mr. Haffner about the Thermolysis. What kind of biomass are you using, and could you also use waste?
Yeah, we could use virtually any kind of biomass. We made trials with manure, with biomass, with agricultural waste. We could also operate with waste. If we want to have what we call biochar, we need to have non-waste biomass. Of course, if we use waste, we wouldn't have biochar. We would have char. But technically, there is no issue in using any kind of biomass. We made trials with a lot of different biomasses, and it always worked. So this is one of the strengths of the system. The only requirement that we have is to have less than 50% moisture content.
Another question? So if there is no question, yeah? Okay.
Bonjour, Martin.
Hi, my name is Martens. I work for the Grand Est region. Do you know how to produce hydrogen based on aluminum powder? This is a technique that has been developed by the US Army, amongst others, and I'd like to know what you think about that. So hydrogen production based on aluminum powder. Does anybody have an answer? It is not directed at anyone specific, but any one of our speakers would like to take the floor on this one? I'm very sorry, Martin, but there's apparently no one here that can answer that question. Very well. Maybe we can test the other mic. Yes, hi, hello. We can see that quite a lot is happening, quite a lot of projects and fundings. You've been talking about 2030 as a key goal. We can see that building pipelines takes a long time, developing technology takes a long time. Is 8 years not quite enough? And what is your perspective on that 2030 goal? Well, now that's a very interesting question, and I think it's going to be relevant for a lot of our speakers. So maybe if I can start, because I think I have the shortest answer to this one. Yes, setting up a pipeline takes time, but retrofitting pipelines can be done quite quickly and can be done within the deadline. So the idea would be to identify the areas where we don't need to start from scratch, identify the right area and start working on that. So we spoke of retrofitting pipelines. We could use some storage facilities as well that already exist to use that for storing hydrogen. Yes, maybe I can answer in French as well, since same as the one before. We did research in France only, but France is quite representative. And with the biomass, the amount of biomass that is available now, that's not affected by usage conflict, and that can be collected easily, we could produce about 1 million tons of hydrogen per year. So that's a significant amount, and we are absolutely able to do this so long as decision making happens with public authorities. By 2030, it's an absolute possibility, not a problem.
Possible, important to speed up. One is scaling up technology, because we have now electrolyzers, for instance, of 20 megawatt, and we need hundreds of megawatt. They don't exist. Second is legislation framework. I think the thing that really would help everybody, every technology, is to give a legal framework for sustainable hydrogen, because we need those end users that are willing to invest millions, maybe billions of euros in doing all of those things, and then we need a legal framework. So I think Europe, in this respect, is in the lead for making this clear as soon as possible. That's much more important than billions of grants, I think.
Yeah, I would like to underline what Mr. Martens said. Regulations are very, very important if you work, especially transnational. This is also an outcome. And, but I want to remember, we have the Treaty of Aachen between France and Germany. So the Treaty of Aachen allows us an experimental clause. So maybe if we start under the Treaty of Aachen with the experimental clause, gives us a chance to start with the pilots. And the next thing is, with all the pilots I presented here, we have a timeline added. This goes from 3 years up to 10 years, depending on the technical readiness level. So there are some pilots which can start right away, and we also have the interest of industries. For example, L'Île-de-France has committed themselves a real interest in making bigger building a big electrolyzer in the Upper Rhine region. And there are also companies like Daimler or Orano which have committed interest in these pilots. And what the industry also says in all the workshops, yes, it is in our line. It's exactly what we want to do, but we have to start now. We cannot wait 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So politics has to come and join with us and push it forward. Thank you.
Madame Ruckh?
Ich kann mich meinen Vorrednerinnen und Rednern nur an.
Yes, I can only agree with what the people around me have been saying. It is time for us to act. It is time for us to develop all this in order for us to be able to work on the market. There is real pressure, and we must have a solid legal framework. Baden-Württemberg has made a commitment to work in this direction, and Baden-Württemberg has also invested in making sure that we could progress in this direction so that we may have a solid hydrogen economy by 2030. We know it's a very ambitious goal that we have set for ourselves, but we can see that there are major companies, very large, big names that are working in this direction, and I'm sure that it can work. Thank you very much. Anything from the president of the Eurometropole of Strasbourg? Yeah, I have a question for Ms. Brun. She showed that in France, you know, pipelines are, she explained how pipelines can be drawn in France. So the question is, do you have the necessary authorizations from a public perspective? Do you have, you know, national authorities, regional authorities as well? How did you manage to make all those decisions? We spoke about the fact that sometimes public authorities were a bit slow. And so my second question is for Mr. Haffner. I, of course, heard about your projects in Strasbourg. I'd like to know how far along they have come and at what date you will really be able to scale it up. So are you already delivering hydrogen solutions in Strasbourg or supplying hydrogen in Strasbourg, and how will you develop further? For the first question, there are two things. The first elements that I showed had to do with the vision, the modeling, and the European hydrogen backbone. This is not just a project. This is something where we know that it's going to work. We don't really need any authorizations. Regarding our more concrete projects, it's true that in France, at the moment, we don't really have the right legal framework, so we can't accelerate too much. When we're developing gas projects or electricity projects, we have a whole set of tools and regulations that are in place with different steps that need to be validated. We know who validates what, who takes the risks, and who's responsible for what. But for our projects, it's even more complicated when it's cross-border, obviously, but we need to really reinvent everything from scratch. We need to work with the different instances on the questions of safety, etc. So it takes a lot of time, and that really relates to the question from that gentleman before. Yes, we can go faster if you're retrofitting pipelines, but faster is still quite slow, and I know 2030 is tomorrow. It's really, really soon. On the French side right now, we can see that a lot is happening, but still the process is a bit too slow for our taste. We need to reinvent all of our tools to develop projects, to take risks in a reasonable way for the different stakeholders. For now, it's a bit of the, you know, it's the hen and the egg type of conundrum. Some people tell us, okay, are you ready? Because I need hydrogen, but I don't want to depend on a single provider. I want for my supply to be safe. I want to be able to choose prices. Is your pipeline ready? When I see producers, they say, I want to produce, but I want to make sure that I can have some customers. Is your pipeline ready? And the public decision makers are telling me, well, yes, but no, and you have to wait for this. And so, of course, again, it's a conundrum. We're a bit stuck from every perspective at the moment. I know it's not easy and we're receiving quite a lot of aid, but I think the first project will have a snowball effect. And Mosaic is more complicated because it's multi-country, but it's also simpler because we're retrofitting existing pipelines, and that's exactly what's at stake.
Donc, concernant la
Now, as to the degree of maturity of the NOCA technology, we had an audit done by an international certification body. They assessed the degree of maturity at the end of 2021, and at the time the project was granted a level of maturity of 7 to 8 out of 9. Now, as to the hydrogen dimension, our partner customer Renoca, that is a partner of GDS, they received the certification back in March. So we are rolling out the hydrogen project to produce a pure hydrogen within 2023. We are now manufacturing precursor gas, as we call it, and there are many challenges when it comes to such gas production. Downstream, there will be many more projects. When it comes to the quality of gas, we have the replies that we wanted. We are able to produce quality hydrogen with the biomass and with the use of the INOCA process. Thank you very much. There is another question.
Maybe to Catherine Brun mostly, but anyone else who has an answer to this. As we said earlier, there's in the Commission proposal for the gas package, there's a proposal, so the number of 5%, so that's 5% of hydrogen into the gas network that the member states have to accept at their interconnection points. What do you think about this number? Is it too high? Is it too low? I'm thinking, what is the ideal number we should have in this package to make sure there's a smooth transition to hydrogen in our networks? Thank you.
Okay. When you say blending, there's different types of blending. There is a real blending, but you're telling about small quantities of hydrogen in gas. The question of the percentage, in fact, I suppose that every TSO has its own answer because it depends on the type of pipes that has been set up in the ground. What we need to have a number, okay? 5 is perhaps a bit high, 3 could be perhaps easier, but afterwards to deal with all the uses on the users of the gas on the pipe to be sure that they can accept this percentage of hydrogen. And unfortunately, it depends. It depends of the uses. You've got some uses in terms, for instance, of mobility, where they need extra pure, let's say, methane, or you have some industrial uses where you need some also very pure blends. But everything has a solution as long as you know, and you can put some devices to purify the hydrogen. But the other topic is the question of interconnection between states. Let's suppose that I'm French and I'm, let's say, I'm saying Laval. I don't know the word. Downstream, thank you. And suppose I'm downstream, for instance, from Belgium. If Belgium comes with full 3% or 5% of hydrogen, if I have some users that wants to inject some hydrogen in the network, how am I going to manage this? Because I'm downstream on the pipe. So there are some really down-to-earth issues that has to be set on the table in order to be sure that this regulation can be possible for everyone.
Another person want to respond? Ok, non. Donc, nous sommes arrivés à la fin. Donc,
So we have come to the end of our session. I'd like to thank all the speakers for their input and for their presentation. We will now move to the coffee break.
I've put the reports of the feasibility study Upper Rhine here on the table. Please take it is in German, in French, and in English. So there are only a few big reports, but the summaries are in all 3 languages. Please take them. Thank you.
merci.